Let me tell you guys a story. So I applied for a mortgage, and I talked about this last week, but I think with with Clint here, I applied for a mortgage months ago to get a small house, nothing too crazy expensive, like actually just small single family. I think it's like 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And the first weird thing that happened was they started juggling agents on me. Agent kept changing. They kept demanding the same paperwork over and over and over again. It was like, hey, we need your pay stubs. Hey, we need your tax return. Hey, we need. They asked me to write a letter. Handwrite a letter explaining my job and my business and what I do. And I'm like, okay, this is getting weird. And then finally, after 3 months, they come back and say, oh, your credit score is too low. My credit score is impeccable. It is almost as high as it could possibly be. My income is fantastic. And it was very strange to get denied this. But what it seems like...
You almost went full Trump there. I thought you were going to go, tremendous.
Tremendous. But talking to my family and friends, they're like, it seems like they're trying to stop us from buying property. Yeah. Meanwhile... Blackrock,
right,
many other investment firms, Wall Street pension funds are buying up property and outbidding people. So I don't understand why it is that they went through all this and gave us the runaround. But you know what I said? I was on the phone with this company. I'll leave them nameless for now. They were like, I was like, hey, the information you claimed about my credit score is false and defamatory. And I actually want to know how this happened, because if you guys issue false credit statements that could seriously impact my ability to buy property, and it's not true, and I want this corrected immediately, this lady's like, let me find someone for you. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, why would a lender do something like this unless they couldn't admit they didn't have liquidity to actually issue loans, or they were near insolvency? And so I just sat on the phone, and I was like, is your company nearing insolvency? No, absolutely not. And I was like, I just find it interesting how long and hard I've been struggling with the runaround, to try and get this loan. It just kind of feels like something must be wrong behind the scenes, and they don't want to publicly admit it. Like they may be nearing insolvency. No. Actually, I'm going to put you on hold for a minute and see if I can find someone. And they put me on hold for like 15 minutes. I was like, I wonder if I struck a chord. I'm making assumptions, but I have to wonder. I started thinking about this. There's a year. No one paying mortgages. Is it possible that all of these people who had loans did not pay them back because they couldn't, and the bank is sitting on bad debt?
Well, one of the things BlackRock's buying is mortgage-backed securities. Same thing that they did in 2008 is they're buying up massive amounts of them. I just read. You said you had some expertise in the whole thing. Like, why would someone with good credit get denied a loan in this day and age?
Well, there's a multitude of factors when it goes to conventional lending. I was in the private lending field. So basically, as a hard money broker, I took private investor capital and I would lend it out to real people. So like, I'm the actual guy who cares. Basically what banking used to be and what it should be is someone in the middle that cares about the capital on one side and the borrower on the other, because they want to pair it together. They don't want to get sued. They want everything to work out in the end, and the investor gets a return that they can appreciate. However, with the conventional lending side, it's complete nonsense. Basically, it's just so deeply regulated that you can have these windows that you have to fit through perfectly, or you can get turned down. And this is a complete opposite of what it used to be in 2004, 2005. Whereas if you had a pulse at that point, you could get qualified for $1 million loan, and you could just lie about your income. It didn't matter. It's now completely the opposite.
Now,
go ahead.
I had a loan with them already.
Yeah,
and I got a loan with them recently, within the past, I think, like 8 months.
The only thing I could think of, if you're right and they're insolvent, I would be stunned, simply because the Federal Reserve has...
No, I don't really think they're insolvent.
Right.
I'm just saying, I wonder if they're sitting on bad debt, so they're like, what do? We got all these loans that no one's paying back. BlackRock comes in and starts buying up all these houses. Could it be that that's a pseudo bailout? When people all start trying to sell their homes because they couldn't pay for them, and then BlackRock comes in and covers the debt plus.
Mm-hmm. I look at it from a totally different perspective, actually. The inventory is so low across the country right now. There's last I looked, there was only 1 million houses for sale. Normally, there's 4 to 6 million, which would be a standard clearing time of about 6 months. So we have 1 to 2 months worth of inventory. The prices are skyrocketing simply because the demand outpaces supply. There's no conspiracy there. However, the reason we have that situation is because of the foreclosure and eviction moratoriums, which are a product of the lockdowns, which the government is responsible for. And then the Fed is juicing the system by putting $7 trillion out there. And of course, you're going to You're going to be forced to chase yield in a way that is very reckless. And we are laying the groundwork for the greatest real estate bubble in our history. I promise you that. And give it 4 or 5 years at most, in my opinion. You could go to Liberty Lockdown. You can tell me if I'm wrong 4 to 5 years from now, but be very cautious.
So are you saying people shouldn't be? Well, you're not giving advice, but you think it's dumb to buy a house right now?
I think it's sane in the short term, because the inventory is so low and the regulatory environment is so challenging to be able to build. It's going to be a year plus before you get these huge waves of housing. And then you also, because of the lockdowns, you destroyed the supply chain. So you have all of these shortages in materials, which is ultimately adding to the price of real estate, because that's what it costs to build it.
Yeah.
So there, all the way around though, this is what bothers me about it. I saw this clip that was it was a great clip. It was Tucker Carlson with this reporter guy that did a really eloquent takedown of all this, but ultimately in all of his soliloquy did not mention the Federal Reserve once. The Federal Reserve is responsible for so much that is destroying this country right now, and it doesn't get any talk, like none. And it's frustrating to me, because it seems as if you almost get into Alex Jones territory when you bring up the Federal Reserve. No, it is a legalized cabal of bankers that control this, the world, but moreover this country and this economy.
But hey, they're LGBTQ and non-binary friendly, as they announced recently, so they're exempt for criticism.
So what you're saying, Clint, is that you're a bigot?
Well, no.
I'm on your team.
No, hold on. Tim, I would counter your narrative, because I don't think Blackrock would do anything for the benefit of the United States, especially with their record, with their history of getting bailouts whenever they have losses and keeping the profits whenever they have profits. This is what Blackrock is. And we have to remember, in 2008, that large, huge economic reckoning was just a burp, was just a small bubble, a part of a larger indigestion problem that there's no Pepto-Bismol for. And this is only going to be so much more worse, because in 2008, this larger problem wasn't rectified, wasn't fixed. It was paid over with more debt, with a bigger bubble, and that bubble's going to pop sooner or later.
The only thing you needed to do was let the bad actors fail. That's all you had to do. And they refused.
Yep.
And what do we have now? The most egregious moral hazard in history. You have BlackRock and all of these other guys.
And Bill Gates, let's not forget, Bill Gates, the largest landowner in all of the United States. Farm
yeah, of course. And so they're going out and they're buying real estate at any price, because they can't find yield, because the stock market is also in a bubble because of the trillions that the Fed has printed. And now you have young people who are priced out of housing, that feel hopeless, that are suicidal. You've also locked them in their house for a year, so I don't even blame them for feeling suicidal. And none of this gets blamed on the Fed. We could have never locked down this country for a year if not for the Federal Reserve, because you couldn't have papered it over like you did. So every single layer of this falls at the fucking doorstep of the Federal Reserve, and no one talks about it. And it drives me crazy.
So what you're saying is buy Bitcoin?
Yes. Actually, I am. Yeah, I am saying that.
I'm good.
If there's a bubble, like you're saying, a 6-year bubble from now, housing bubble, what would it look like year by year? What would change?
It's very hard to say, because all right, so this is what I tell people when they ask me for advice, because I am a long-time real estate investor. It's very important that you pay attention to short-term interest rates. Obviously, if the Federal Reserve hikes rates, we're in serious trouble. So I don't think they're going to do it simply because they can't. They cannot do it because our debt is so massive. If they increase the rates at which the government has to borrow, we are insolvent as a nation. So the alternative is that you see bond vigilantes come in, and they stop buying long-term bonds, in which case you see interest rates hike. Basically, all I'm saying is this. If you see 30-year mortgages or 15, 20, whatever, that get north of 4.5%, 5%, expect to see the fissures that are underlying this economy start to really show.
So what does it look like in 4 years?
It depends on the interest rates. It really does. Like, this is why I
Which
can't.
the Federal Reserve sets.
Well, they do and they don't. They set short-term interest rates. Long-term interest rates are set by bond buyers. Bond buyers are China, the American people. Many people buy bonds. So it's not as simple as that. People always think like, well, if they hike rates, or if they don't hike rates, this lasts forever. No, because at some point, housing, no matter how cheap it is, because you can get 3%, 30-year money. Well, we have an inflation rate of 5%. Mm-hmm. What logical sense does that make? As an investor, why would you ever lend out money at less than, basically slightly more than half of the inflation rate? You are assuring yourself capital destruction. Mm-hmm. and yet people are doing it. But the reason they do it is because they believe that the Federal Reserve will be the buyer of last resort when it comes to those bonds. That's the reason that it persists.
They're expecting a bailout.
Yes, they are, and
That's a good bet.
And they should.
Yes,
and they should.
Yep.
And the Fed should expect a revolution. If I have anything to say about it,
I don't know. I think they'd be smart not to.
Peaceful. I mean.
No, I think most people are just going to grumble and demand a higher minimum wage.
Well, they're the fools.
Yeah.
They're the useful idiots. Because if you still think that that's the reason that you're not getting paid well enough, and that's the reason you can't afford a house, all of this is a product of your currency being destroyed year after year for 100 plus years.
You know what really blows my mind about Bitcoin is like every time I tweet about it, I get someone who's arguing from 2011, like as if they got into a time machine, or like if they fell asleep under a tree and grew a really long beard and woke up and opened Twitter and then commented. I'm like, bro, it's been 10 years.
Right.
I put money into Bitcoin like 6 years ago. I'm very happy with my store of value. Yeah, well, it's not a currency. I don't care.
Right.
If I put my money in the bank, I would have lost half of it by now, or whatever the stupid number is, the actual number of inflation. So I bought Bitcoin. Wish I bought more. And they're like, yeah, well, look, it fell 50%. Bro, I bought in November. It's up 300 and something percent.
Right.
Stop looking at it. And it's insane. Okay, I'll tell you what. Go put your money in the US dollar. Because the story I always tell everybody, I went on Amazon, clicked the little tablet. I was like, I need a tablet for the house. Forgot to buy it. A few days later, I opened up Amazon and said, alert. I clicked it. Price change for this product. Jumped up $130. Amazing. That's a huge shift.
It's incredible.
What was it, like a 15% increase in cost or something? While Bitcoin went up 15% in value?
Basically. So we have a shed full of wood left over from the skate parks. And it's probably like 10.
You're sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah, it's like 10 grand. Seriously, it's like it's a
need
variety
armed
of
guards out there.
Yeah. No joke. It is a shed full of wood and lumber of various sizes.
This is my fantasy.
At the time, it was probably $1,000. It's probably like $6,000-$7,000 worth of lumber right now.
What has it been like as a builder?
I was just going to say, I'm building 6 houses right now. Fortunately, we started buying our materials as the planning was getting near the vertical stage where you start to actually build. But yeah, I'm getting crushed. But the fortunate thing for me is the end market will end up paying me off anyways, because the market has increased so much. It's up 15% year over year nationwide. In San Diego, it's even higher than that. Florida, basically any of the red states where people have fled the blue states to go and have some semblance of freedom. The market, some of those markets are up 75%. It's unbelievable.
I was just in Florida and I was trying to help a friend and some family members find anything there. It's virtually freaking impossible right now because the prices are just going up so high. I was just flabbergasted. And all these real estate guys are like, yep, this is utterly insane. I have never seen this high of demand.
Yep.
I heard one guy saying it's going to go down in 16 months. Other people are saying, no, that's not going to happen. But it's virtually impossible. And at the Bitcoin conference, which was also happening in Florida, in Miami, there was a lot of talk about the Federal Reserve, about the banking cartel.
That's why I love the
sticking
Bitcoin
it
community.
to them.
Yeah.
And there was 12,000 people with all these conversations going along, and the big conversation was we need to get away from this financial tyranny that's happening right now. Inflation is a tax on savings. If you're stuck, having US dollars in your hands or underneath your bed, those dollars are slowly liquidating. Those dollars are slowly going away and you don't even realize it. The purchasing power of the dollar, look up that chart. Go on DuckDuckGo, click purchasing power of dollar and click images and you will be shocked.
Come on, man. We're not raising taxes on anybody unless you make more than $400,000.
Families.
It's only $400,000. Meanwhile, we're going to print 7 trillion and we're going to borrow 20-something trillion and pump it into the system, which will devalue all of your savings and strip away your resources and buying power without you even realizing it. Because if you did realize it, you'd probably go outside with a pitchfork.
A part of
Bingo.
a bigger problem, a part of a bigger solution, which is brought to us by the G7 recently with their Build Back Better proposal, which they announced that they're going to try to get $40 trillion on infrastructure. And as we know, the term infrastructure, very loose term, very generalized term. But when you see the government intervene so dramatically, when you see them print money out of thin air, we have to understand the American people need to wake up to the fact that when this happens, they are getting robbed blind.
And
the government is literally coming to your house as you're sleeping, going through your money, taking it from you, slapping your wife upside the head, kicking your dog, and saying, "Give me more." And then American people are like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, give us more." And then it's just there's this meme going around that I shared today of a clown saying, "Hey, we're gonna give you free stuff," and then he opens up this prize box and it's a gun to the person's head, because that's essentially what it is when you get promised free stuff. It's your servitude, it's your financial tyranny, it's you being robbed, blind, naked, to the point where people are finding it extremely difficult to make ends meet and harder to own anything. And this, again, plays into this bigger Great Reset agenda, which is essentially carried out with the same generic talking points of Build Back Better, which all these globalists keep repeating and talking about.
Isn't bacon up like 20%?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Year over year?
Lumber's up 400. I mean, this is wild stuff.
But bacon.
Well, yeah, I know bacon's more important, but no, it's true. And you know, Peter Schiff is wrong about Bitcoin, but he's right about this. He's right that his analogy used to be that America is a heroin addict and debt is our heroin. I would like to add to his analogy and say that it's actually the globe that's where we are now, because we went from, I think it was 19 trillion before Trump and national debt. We're approaching 30 trillion by the end of this year. I estimate personally, even though the CBO says it'll be 40 trillion by the end of 2030, I think it'll probably be closer to 50 trillion. Nationally, we have globally, we have over 200 trillion in debt. Unfunded liabilities in America are about 100 trillion. I mean, you go down the list and it's like, it's so clearly a house of cards. And the most important thing I want people to understand is it's not new. It's not new. The savings and loan crisis, the tech bust, the 0809 bust, even before I was born, we have the entire purpose of the Federal Reserve is that you can have malinvestment, and then at the end of the day, you can bail yourself out. And who is actually bailing yourself out? We are. The people that pay taxes, not these sons of that are profiting and taking billions. That's really the scam here. And because we don't understand it, we have the Marxists that think that it's capitalist greed that's the issue, and you have the Republicans who think that it's immigration that's the issue, and that's why they can't get ahead, and that's why they can't own a home. You're both wrong. You're both seeing a portion of the elephant. You're not seeing the whole thing.
I want to add to that analogy, as I have eloquently before, and I would say the Federal Reserve is a toothless crack whore on fentanyl, to add to all of this,
great
a part of the larger context. And when you start seeing things from that perspective,
That's
it actually
offensive.
makes sense.
That's offensive to crack whores, though.
It
Yeah.
is. I apologize.
And
Like these are
dealers,
people.
come on, man.
Yeah, these are people who need help and compassion. The Federal Reserve is like, you ever see that subreddit Evil Buildings? It's just someone should put the Fed on that subreddit. Just a picture of the Federal
100%.
Reserve, each and every one.
The sad thing is I don't think many people would get the joke.
No, I don't know, maybe.
They wouldn't even recognize the building.
Evil Buildings.
I would say that the debt, Federal Reserve debt, is the heroin, and then the interest on the debt is the methadone that you need to get off the heroin. But unfortunately, in this situation, it's their methadone, so if they don't want you to have it.
And the reason the metaphor works so well is because ultimately the debt, the heroin you're taking, you have to take more and more just to not get sick. That's where we exist today. And the reason that the collapse in 0809 was so severe is because the debt was significant at that point. We have no idea what is coming with this next collapse. I'm telling you, because the debt is so much more, just severe than it was even 10 years ago. And there is no Paul Volcker that exists in politics today that's going to come in and do the right thing and hike interest rates to 22% like he did in 1981.
Wow.
It's not going to happen. And I know that seems crazy because we've existed with 3.5% mortgages. I'm talking about Fed funds rate was over 20%. That dude is a animal. And
what happened with that? I mean, people stopped buying or what?
2 year severe recession, and then we had 30 years of the greatest economic boom in human history. He's a hero for that. He's a bad guy in a lot of other ways, but what he did with that was incredible because 70s were very much like what we're experiencing now. High inflation, and he was like, we ain't playing this.
He's a Bilderberger
Incredible.
too. I had a very interesting conversation because he was lost in the building, and I was trying to help him find his way to the VIP area as I was questioning him about Bilderberg.
He seemed super stoked about it.
He was really nice. He was actually a very cordial guy, and he actually let me in the room to Ben Bernanke. And I went up to Ben Bernanke and I asked him, how does it feel to steal the most amount of money in recorded human history from the working class? And he literally tried to rip away the microphone from my hands.
You're officially my hero. You
You
actually
gotta
did
I'll send you the video.
Please do.
We Are Change, Ben Bernanke. There's
Oh.
like 3 confrontations. He gets really angry when he gets confronted. Also, a Bilderberg member. Just a side note.
When you
Bernanke?
Yes.
You went skydiving with him, remember?
Oh yes, me and Tim made a video about Ben Bernanke because people are like, "There's no way you're confronting all these guys. This is impossible." So
Luke was accused of being a spy, like working for a bunch of like
Dick Cheney
yeah,
and Tony Blair.
Because Luke was able to confront Bernanke like in a private event.
Multiple
so there were all
times.
these posts on Reddit that were like, there's no way this is possible. Luke is controlled opposition. So we put together a video where Luke's on the phone, or like, no, you're chilling and your phone rings.
Yeah,
And
I
it says-
think your brother made the Photoshop images of me and Ben Bernanke with strippers and
Well,
then skydiving.
dude,
So what happens is Luke's sitting there, and then his phone rings, and it says Ben Bernanke on it, and he's like, Benny, what's up? And then the camera's panning to like background stuff, and there's a Photoshop of Luke and Ben Bernanke skydiving together, and then he's like, yeah, I need some more. What did you call them?
Federal Reserve fiat slave notes or something.
Yeah, and you're
I'm
like, you're
wait,
flat. I'm coming to see, and you're slapping it.
we have all these
Yeah,
fake
yeah.
deception dollars.
I'll pretend to question you. You'll act flustered. It'll be great. We'll make a bunch of money.
Bernanke said that there was no chance of a housing collapse about 18 months before it happened.
wow.
Yeah, but you know why? They want the poor people to keep buying
You're absolutely
while
right.
they're sneaking out the back door.
You're absolutely right. That's the mistake that people make is they always assume, how could they be so bad? Isn't it their job to evaluate economics? How could they have gotten this wrong? Because that's what they're there to do. They're there for you to be the buyer of that holds the bag while all of their crony get out the back door. That's what it's always been.
Yep.
And yet we allow this to persist. I just want to really emphasize this point. Why are we allowing this to persist?
It's-
if you were getting
because you've got Republicans who sit on their hands and Democrats who set things on fire.
They don't know. It's ignorance. It's like intentional obfuscation. There's this Henry Ford quote I came across. It's well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Yes. That was like the 30s or 20s or something.
Yeah.
It's been going on since they formed the Federal Reserve, basically.
That's a good quote.
I mean, arguably even before. I think Andrew Jackson was terrified. He broke up the central bank in the 1850s and got an assassination attempt
Thomas
against him.
Jefferson advised against it as well.
So
He
they
said
put
that
his
there
face
was
in the
more-
$20 bill.
Yeah, ha ha.
Yeah.
He said that national banks would be more dangerous than a standing army. I mean, these guys got it. They got it because this isn't new. That's what I keep going back to. It's not new. It has happened, and it's lasted far, far before the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was just the best at it, and damn were they good at it because they got it done in the dead of night, and no one knew about it, and they have been doing it for 110 years.
That's right. Good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just raw talent and ability.
I applaud them.
And thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.